Do you need a lawyer? That's probably not a question you ever thought you'd need to ask as an Android developer, but Google Play's new developer requirements just might have you wondering that. As of right now, Google is requiring you to verify your Play account's identity with what could appear to be a bunch of legal jargon. The clock is ticking, and failure to comply will get you kicked off the store completely. In this video, I'm going to spare you the effort and sweat of getting a lawyer and answer this question so you can keep your account alive and well. We'll go over all of this in three parts, where first, we'll start with what you need to do today, and then what you need to do next year after April 1st, 2024, depending on whether you're an individual developer or representing a company. Now, of course, I'm going to need to go over the obligatory I am not a lawyer, and this is not legal advice. This is simply a set of guidelines, so if you get stuck or something feels a little bit off, you definitely should consult with somebody who's familiar with identity verification. Okay, well now we've got that off our plates, let's get to it. So the big question is what you need to do today. Well, I do recommend jumping on this process as soon as possible, but really all you're doing right now, it's pretty simple stuff. You're just going to be reserving time for when you're going to verify your account with Google later on. So that doesn't leave you with much to do, aside from one thing. You do need to know what kind of account you are. Are you a personal account or are you representing a business? Now, I'm going to go through some of this process on my personal console account in Google Play, and I'll show you some of the differences. Right now, there's not going to be a whole lot of difference between a personal and an organization account, but I'll point them out whenever we get there. So to get started, you probably got an email that looks a lot like this. You'll get this from Google Play. It went out around early to mid-November, depending on where you are from the time frame. And really all they're going to do is redirect you to the Google Play console. So I'm going to log into my Google Play console account. And then here is the home screen, everything that I have. And the big thing that they're going to show you right here is this banner. Choose your preferred account verification deadline. Now, like I said, the one thing you do need to know is whether this is a personal or a business account. And I can see right at the very top here on the home screen, it says personal account. If you don't see it there, you can go to account details on the left, and the account type here also shows as personal. So that's important to check. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the home screen, and then it says pick a deadline. Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and hit get started and get a pop-up here, and it says, when do you want to do the verification process? And they give you a list of things that you need to do in order to verify it. Now, pretty much everything you see in this list is going to be for later on. So not a big deal right now. We're just going to go ahead and pick a deadline. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. And all of these slots are on a first come, first served basis. But personally, I actually recommend doing it earlier, especially if you have all this information on hand. It's just going to give you good standing with Google sooner. Really, that's the important part here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this one and hit next. Next, they're going to ask me to confirm the account type. Now, I am going to keep this as personal in this case. So I'm not representing a business or a nonprofit or an academic institution or anything like that. So I'm just going to keep this as personal. Now, if you do, obviously you're going to go ahead and select organization, and it's going to ask you a few different questions, particularly this DUNS number. We'll get to that a little bit later on if you are representing a business. So I'm going to keep this as personal for now. It's going to ask me what country I'm in. Of course, I'm going to just go ahead and pick what I'm in, which is in the United States. And we'll go ahead and select next. And that's it. As you can see, the process is very simple. Now, the drop-dead deadline by which I have to prove that I am who I say I am is August 21st, 2024. But I can start as early as June 22nd, 2024, but not any earlier. So even if you have this information on hand, well, you're going to have to wait until that earliest date. So I'll go ahead and hit reserve to confirm that, and I'm good to go for now. And just as a precaution, I'm going to jump back to my email account, and you can see they did confirm my date, August 22nd, 2024. So they're going to send me reminders before then to make sure this doesn't slip, but it's good to know that it's in their record books. Now here's what you're going to need if you're doing this as an individual. First, you're going to need your developer name, which could just be basically the name of your account. It doesn't have to be your legal name. But you will also need your legal name and your address, both of which are going to be publicly visible on Google Play. Then you're going to need your contact email address, only for Google to contact you. This isn't really going to be public. You're also going to need a contact phone number for that same purpose, and then a developer email account, which will show on Google Play. And if you'd like, you can put on a website. Now here comes all of the fun legal stuff. What they're going to do is require you to link your Google Payments profile with Google Play. Even if your apps are free and you never plan on making any money, this is how they're going to verify your identity. Now, more than likely, if you've ever bought something from Google before, you already have a payments profile. So that means you can use an existing one and the process is going to be easier. If that is verified, then you're done. There's pretty much nothing else they need to ask. But if it's not verified, they're going to ask you one particular question. They're going to need an official government identity document. And in the US, and particularly only in the US, that could be something like a passport, a driver's license, or a green card if you're not a citizen. They may also ask for a tax ID, which again, in the US is most likely going to be a social security number. I also really highly recommend that you connect your bank account. Basically, if you ever do plan on making money with Google Play in the future, they're going to require that you have a bank account linked up, and that can take a little bit of time. So if you ever do try to make money and they don't have a linked bank account on your Google Play account, well, they're going to kick not only your apps, but also your profile off the Play Store. So just get it over with once. Usually the way that they do this is they'll ask for your banking information, and then they're going to make what are called micro deposits, where typically they'll drop a few pennies into your account, usually adding up to less than $1. Then they're going to ask you for what those amounts are. Now, of course, this is up to you on how far you really want to go. These are just my recommendations. If you don't already have a Google Payments profile set up, then they're going to ask you to go through all the things I basically just described, and you're going to have to give them the official government identity document with all the rules I just gave you earlier. Now, if you're verifying your Play account as an organization, there tends to be a lot more confusion on that because Google not only requires all the information I just described earlier, but also a few other things, particularly this thing called a DUNS number. It seems to be very confusing, so I'll break that down here. Google defines an organization to be anything that's a business, a nonprofit organization, a partnership, a government entity, or an educational institution. All that sort of stuff would basically put you outside of the individual category. If you go through this route, then you're going to need to be the account owner. So if you're just a regular developer on the Play console, more than likely you don't need to worry about it because somebody else manages the account that you use. But really, Google needs a way of being able to contact you, the account owner. So all the personal information that we talked about in the individual section applies to you as the account owner. In addition to all of the things for an individual, Google's going to require 5 extra things for you as an organization. In particular, they're going to need a developer phone number, and this is going to be public. It's going to be showing on Google Play, so choose carefully. They're also going to need to know your org type, whether you're a nonprofit or a business or something like that, the size of your organization, a phone number, and a website. Okay, so we're back to the fun legal stuff again. In the case of an organization, it's actually going to be very much the same as it is for an individual. You're going to use a Google Payments profile, just like before, and you can either use an existing one or create a new one. Now, if you've already gone through all this stuff before and you already have a verified account, then congratulations, you're done. If you're not verified, then you're going to need much the same as you would as an individual. You'll need that magical official government identity document. Again, this is going to refer to the account owner, how they're going to verify you personally. And then this rest of the stuff is for the organization. They're going to need an official organization document. And in the case of the US, that'd be something like an employer identification number, often called an EIN given by the IRS. If you've ever dealt with any taxes for your business at all, you've probably seen this EIN before. Other examples would be something like articles of incorporation, license to do business, stock certificates, different things like that. There's quite a few ways to verify that. And just like before, I am going to recommend that you connect your bank in the event that you do decide to make money in the future, that you don't get your account frozen. Now let's talk about the DUNS number. What is it? Well, first of all, it's created by an organization called Dun & Bradstreet. They're basically a company that collects information on other businesses, and when you register with them, you get a unique identifier called a DUNS number that lands in their database. Now, the big deal with this is the fact that it's international. So, for example, if you're going to verify your business using the EIN, well, that's given to you by the IRS, and that's only good in the United States. The DUNS number is technically international. DUNS stands for Data Unique Numbering System. Does that mean anything? No. It's simply a unique ID for your business, and it's pretty much a standard since the 1960s, and many companies use it for identity verification, not just Google. So that's the process for verifying a Google Payments profile for your business if you don't already have it verified. Now, if you don't have a Google Payments profile, well, the process is going to be basically the exact same thing. So again, I want to clarify that this is just work for the account owner, not just any developer on the account. I'm going to show you what the process looks like of either finding a DUNS number for your business or creating one if you need to. Now, if you're already running a business and you're running an organization for Google Play Console, you should probably know where to find the DUNS number, but if not, I'll go ahead and show you. So I'm going to go to the Dun & Bradstreet website, and this is where they maintain their database of DUNS numbers. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to this drop-down menu and say, Find my DUNS number. And then I'll select the region. I'm in the US, so I'll go ahead and click US. And then on this page, this is where I'm going to select my company. I could technically look up somebody else's if I wanted to, but I'll just say mine. Now, for this example, I'm going to go ahead and pretend that I'm Google, and I'll look up them by name. So I'll say Google, and the next thing I'm required to put in is the state of operation. So in this case, this will be California. I'll hit search, and I'll get a lot of results back. So in the case I wanted to look up, say, the headquarters of Google, 1600 Amphitheater Parkway, Mountain View, California, I can click email DUNS number. So it's not technically publicly visible, but it should be able to send it to the owner of the DUNS number. And one thing to keep in mind is that DUNS numbers are often considered to be site specific. So if you're a large company with lots of different offices everywhere, you want to think about where your application is primarily being developed. And do you have a DUNS number for that specific location? It's not good enough just to say, well, I have one at headquarters or just for my company. You often need one for the specific location. So let me show you how you can create one. I'm going to go back to the Dun & Bradstreet website, and let's go through the process of doing it for a Google account. And lo and behold, if I scroll down, here's all the steps that you need to do, all the information that you're going to need, and lo and behold, they actually have a button here for Google developers. So this should make the process a little bit easier because they're already catering to us. I'm going to go ahead and click I'm a Google developer. And then from here, it's going to ask you, where do you want the DUNS number? I'm in the United States, so I'll select that. And then they're going to start asking me for information specifically about my business. So I'll put in the zip code, the business name, say I'll register TLDR Android. Now you can see here they're saying they couldn't find a business matching TLDR Android. So that means I probably don't have a DUNS number. If you actually do get a result, that means they found a matching DUNS number and you can just go ahead and use that. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I don't see my business. From here, they have all kinds of different options that you can go through. I'm only really interested in just a DUNS number, which is technically free. So I'm going to go ahead and click Get Started for free. At this point, I'm going to leave you here. This is where they're going to ask me to create an account and then go through all of their verification that's specific to just me and my business. Keep in mind that this process can take upwards of 30 days for verification, so you definitely want to get started as soon as possible. So by the time your deadline rolls by for Google Play, you're more than prepared. From here, you have all your ducks in a row. I just recommend that you get your documents, get that DUNS number, and verify your Google Play account. Then you can move on to more interesting things, like building apps with AI, like I did over here. If you want to go back to the real developer stuff, then click here. Otherwise, I'll see you next time on TLDR Android. Thanks, and happy coding.